All right, stand by. 10 seconds.
Ready, camera. Ready, camera.
And cue talent.
2,
One.
1, roll to record.
The death of conservative hero Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia has caused nothing less than a political earthquake. I'm John Phillips, and this is The Rundown. This could be a game changer on almost every major question facing the court in an incredibly contentious election year. Big decisions were expected on affirmative action, climate change, abortion, union power, and maybe most importantly, presidential authority and immigration. The battle lines are being drawn in Washington as we speak. President Obama is determined to protect his legacy and nominate a replacement before he leaves office. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is equally determined to block any more Obama nominees, but Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley, Republican of Iowa, has signaled a willingness to at least hold a hearing if the president nominates a reasonable candidate. Adding to all the confusion were reports that Justice Scalia, who was not given an autopsy, was found by the owner of the ranch where he was vacationing in a bed, a pillow over his head. That's a quote. This has sparked rumors of an assassination and cover-up. Now, the man who made that comment has since told the LA Times that he meant the pillow was between Scalia's head and the headboard of the bed, not over his face. Whatever happened in Texas, the significance of who replaces Scalia cannot be overstated. How should the GOP handle this? Should they run out the clock and prevent another liberal justice from joining the court? Or is it too risky in an election year to be seen as an obstructionist? Should the GOP use the leverage they have now to get a moderate consensus nominee from Obama instead of rolling the dice on winning the White House in November? To explore all of these questions and much, much more, we're joined from Dallas, Texas by author and political satirist Scott Ott, and here in Southern California, stand-up comic and PJTV contributor Stephen Cruiser. Now, Cruiser, I don't need my Johnny Carson turban on to predict that all of us think that we should wait for the next president to decide who the Supreme Court justice is. Explain the significance of what happens if President Obama nominates another Elena Kagan or another Justice Sotomayor to the Supreme Court and the Democrats have a 5-4 majority. Explain the reality of what that America is like.
They're going to start codifying all the lunacy of the social justice warriors on campus. You can say goodbye to the Second Amendment. I don't think I'm being too full of hyperbole or far-reaching with any of this. I think that I think you're going to see like some sort of criminalization of speech that's offensive. It's going to be that kind of stuff now. It's going to be a court that if they thought the Constitution was living and breathing before, the thing is just going to be huffing and puffing once they get to it now, because they're just going to be rewriting so much. It's a watershed moment for the court in America right now, and it's this balance that we've had so far is good, because if you look at almost any kind of situation, most people would agree if you're going to err on the side of caution. So that's basically what the makeup of the court has been doing all along. We'll err a little more towards the strict constitutionalist side of things before we let this run. Not to say the left hasn't been able to get things through, but I think erring on the side of caution goes out the window, and we'll be erring on the side of, hey, what's next? We're drunk and it's spring break in Mexico.
Scott, talk to me about the politics of the pick here. What is President Obama going to do? Is he going to try to nominate a moderate so that Republicans, particularly Chuck Grassley, who's up for re-election, Kelly Ayotte, who's up for re-election, there's going to be a tough re-election for Pat Toomey in the state of Pennsylvania, where they are almost forced to go along with an up or down vote on that nominee? Or is he going to nominate another Elena Kagan and just say, you know what, I'm the president and you have to follow my routine?
Well, it depends on how much of a spine he thinks Mitch McConnell has. If he really thinks that the Senate is going to either delay or refuse to take up his nominee, then he'll probably nominate someone that will be aimed at embarrassing the Republicans in the Senate. If he thinks that there's a chance he may get somebody in, he may go for what he would consider to be a more moderate jurist. But the sad thing about this all is that it's even a political football. It's the Supreme Court. We shouldn't have political divides on the Supreme Court, but the reality is that a leftist jurist does something that I like to call outcome-based adjudication. That is, they look at a case and they say, how shall we adapt the Constitution to the way we would like to see this come out? When somebody like Antonin Scalia looked at it, and he wouldn't have called himself, by the way, a strict constructionist, he would call himself a textualist. He would basically say, how does the text of the law and the text of the Constitution apply to the facts of this case? And Scalia said often that he was actually willing to have a case come out in a way that he did not favor, as long as they stuck with the text of the law, the text of the Constitution, and the facts of the case. Because his theory, his constitutional theory was, it's the job of the legislature through the democratic process to correct something that's wrong in the law, and it would be better if Congress writes a bad law, he said, the Supreme Court should make a bad decision.
You know, Cruiser, I'm going to catch all kinds of hell in the comment section for saying this, but I'm going to say something nice about Hillary Clinton on PJTV.
I gotta go.
Here's what I'm going to say. I think that Hillary Clinton, worst case scenario, she gets elected president, and let's say that Mitch McConnell has a spine and does not allow the up or down vote, and she gets to appoint the Supreme Court justice. I think we're likely, it'll be a small difference, but I think we're likely to get a better nominee from her than we would from Obama. Friends of mine who practice law in the federal court say there's absolutely no question the Clinton appointees were much, much better than the Obama appointees. Obama is an avowed leftist. The Clintons are more transactional politicians. So I think you can't lose by delaying the vote up or down.
But Hillary Clinton is now, she's basically Angela Davis now running in this election, right? It's like she's going so far left. And, the old theory that they go back to the center to win the general, I don't know that that's going to happen this time around. And everything you say seems valid if Bill is advising her. I mean, this is like Bill Clinton's appointees are good, yes, and solid. I don't know what goes on with Hillary or what her litmus test would be. And she's canted so far left on this now, on so many things, that she may be looking at a jurist who's slightly more progressive. And I'm skeptical. I'm a bit skeptical of there being any centrist jurist that a Democrat
you think she'd have to prove her stripes?
Yeah, I don't even know if any of them exist anymore.
What do you think, Scott? You think we're likely to get a better nominee out of Hillary than Obama?
Yeah, but my question would be, are we likely to get a better nominee out of Bernie Sanders than Obama? I mean, I think there's a risk either way here. And I'm not completely convinced that Hillary Clinton has it locked up, no matter what your terrific show poll position may say at the moment. So, I think that it makes sense for the Senate. Here's the risk you always play. If you start playing dirty, from Mitch McConnell's perspective, essentially, if you start doing things that you wouldn't like if the other side was doing it to you, well, then you always open yourself up to the possibility that the next time around, they're going to do it to you. And so I think that what Mitch McConnell needs to do is lead this as a constitutional, serious process, not an opportunity for grandstanding, not an election year show, but he really needs, if President Obama nominates someone, as he well may in the coming weeks, then I think McConnell needs to begin the process, but he doesn't have to rush through it. The Senate, after all, is the cooling saucer. The Senate is supposed to slow things down so that the passions of the democratic process don't overwhelm good governance.
There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Harry Reid would do this exact thing that we're suggesting that Mitch McConnell do to a Republican president in his second term.
Yeah,
Harry Reid went nuclear the last time he was in charge. There's no doubt in my mind either. I mean, this is like this, but right now, it's again, as Scott says, you can't play the, well, you did this, you did that. The Senate always does that, though, lately. In recent years, they go, well, we're not going to do this, we're opposed. And then when they're in charge, well, we're not as opposed as we used to be. But right now, as someone who's not a huge fan of the Republican establishment, the Republican establishment has been given a gift from Antonin Scalia that I could not have imagined happening in this election. They can make peace with a lot of conservatives right now who have hated them for years on end by just being strong at the moment. And I don't think what Grassley's doing is wrong either. Grassley being in charge of the Judiciary Committee saying, okay, I'll wait to see you the nominee. He's just playing politics there. He's playing chess. I wrote about that at PJ Media. He's playing chess there saying, okay, come on, let me see what you're going to give me, President Obama. So that's smart. If McConnell can hold strong, unfortunately, just before we started taping, I saw Orrin Hatch on CNN saying, this isn't the time for a fight. So,
all right. Let me throw out a conspiracy theory, Scott, and I'll have you respond to it. I can see the eye rolling from here, all the way in Texas. Let's say Obama appoints Hillary Clinton to the Supreme Court as a consensus nominee because she's old, and because she's polling right now the weakest, not just of the declared Democrats, but if you threw Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren, both of those two candidates would stand a better chance in a November election against a Republican. That way you take Hillary Clinton out of the presidential election, you put someone much stronger in, and the give to the Republicans is, I'm nominating someone that's old, that's not going to be there that long.
You know, I would have to see a doctor's full workup on Hillary Clinton before I would get behind this strategy. Unfortunately, you know, aside from the occasional coughing fit, she seems to be in fairly good health. So, you know, I don't think you should play games with stuff like this. I mean, after all, it's the Supreme Court of the United States. And what I hate about, for example, hearings on such things is that most of the hearings will not be aimed at discovering what the nominee actually believes or the track record of the nominee, because you know these things. They'll never say what they're going to do in the future. So all you can do is look at what they did in the past. And instead, it'll be a bunch of bloviating by senators on both sides, one side making speeches about, you know, how we shouldn't legislate from the bench, the other side making speeches about how we should allow the president to have his nominee, and very little fact-finding. If Mitch McConnell wants to gain the trust of the American people, at the very least, he should do this whole process with integrity and with a serious approach to who is going to sit on the court maybe for the next 30 years.
All right, last question. All I want is a yes or a no. Does McConnell cave?
Yes.
Scott?
Nobody ever lost any money betting McConnell would cave.
I say yes, he caves. That's my prediction, too. All right, that's all the time we have for today, but now it's your turn. Was there foul play in the death of Justice Antonin Scalia? And is Mitch McConnell going to cave? Tell us what you think in the comment section below. I'm John Phillips. Thanks so much for watching The Rundown.